Here's the part nobody in the American food industry wants to talk about. Europe didn't ban these foods quietly. They didn't sneak a regulation through in the middle of the night. They looked at the science, they looked at what was happening to people, and they said, publicly, officially, in writing, this is not allowed here anymore. And then those exact same foods stayed on shelves here, in your pantry, in your kids' lunches, in the snacks you grabbed at the checkout counter this week. 15 of them. 15 foods that a government with stricter food safety standards than ours reviewed and decided were too dangerous to sell, and that you can walk into any American grocery store and find right now. Stick around for number 9, because number 9 is in more American products than almost any ingredient on this list. It was classified as a possible human carcinogen by the World Health Organization, and the company that puts it in your food knows exactly what that classification says. And stay for number 1, because number 1 is a food additive that Europe banned based on neurological effects in children. American regulators reviewed the same data, and then did nothing. 15 foods, all still in your pantry. Let's go through every one. Every item on this list has been officially restricted, banned, or significantly limited by the European Union, the UK Food Standards Agency, or both, in 2024 or based on rulings that took full effect in 2024. The regulations I'm referencing are publicly available. The scientific reviews behind them are documented. This isn't speculation. This is policy. The question is why the same science that changed what Europe allows hasn't changed what you're eating. I'll tell you exactly what each food is, where you find it, what the European review said, and what you can do about it. Number 8 on this list is a preservative you've eaten hundreds of times. It's in packaged bread, snack cakes, and processed cheese. And the concern that pushed Europe toward restriction isn't just cancer risk, it's endocrine disruption. It interferes with how your body regulates hormones. That warning has been in the literature for over a decade. And the final item, number 1, is a dye. A color added to food for no reason except appearance. Europe banned it for its effects on children's attention and behavior. The FDA reviewed the evidence in 2011 and said it wasn't conclusive enough to act on. In 2024, the same dyes are still in your child's cereal. If you're the kind of person who reads past the front of the label, who suspects the warning exists somewhere even when the packaging doesn't mention it, this is your community. Subscribe now. What I'm covering here is the kind of information that takes hours of regulatory document reading to find. I've done that so you don't have to start from scratch. Food 15, potassium bromate. Potassium bromate has been in commercial baking since the early 1900s. It strengthens dough, helps bread rise higher and hold its shape, and it is cheap. That is the complete list of reasons it still exists in American food. Here is what most people miss. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, a branch of the World Health Organization, classified potassium bromate as a possible human carcinogen in 1999. Not 1999 as in a long time ago and science has moved on. 1999 as in the evidence existed a quarter century ago and the FDA still hasn't acted on it. The European Union banned it for use in bread decades before that. The UK banned it, Canada banned it, Brazil banned it, India banned it. You can find potassium bromate in commercial rolls, wraps, and some packaged breads still sold in the United States today. It doesn't have to appear on the label in recognizable terms. Look for it by name in the ingredients list. If a bread product is unusually light and uniformly structured and costs almost nothing, bromate may be part of why. The warning was always there. It was on a WHO document. It just didn't make it onto the bag. Food 14, brominated vegetable oil. Brominated vegetable oil, BVO, is exactly what it sounds like. It is vegetable oil that has been bonded with bromine, a halogen element, for the purpose of keeping citrus flavor evenly distributed in soft drinks. Without it, the flavoring floats to the top. With it, your orange-flavored drink looks and tastes consistent all the way to the bottom of the bottle. Bromine accumulates in body tissue. Repeated exposure over time has been associated with neurological symptoms, memory problems, impaired coordination, nerve damage, in documented cases of excessive consumption. Europe banned BVO. Japan banned it. The FDA, which had classified it as safe in the 1970s, finally revoked that classification in 2023 after the National Institutes of Health published research showing it altered thyroid function in animal studies. As of 2024, some manufacturers have removed it, some have not. It is still legal in the United States. Check the ingredients on any brightly colored citrus-flavored drink, especially cheap sports drinks and sodas, before you assume it's gone. Food 13, azodicarbonamide. Azodicarbonamide is a chemical used in two industries. One is food manufacturing. The other is the production of yoga mats and shoe soles. In food, it functions as a dough conditioner and bleaching agent. It makes bread whiter, makes it rise faster, and extends shelf life. It is approved by the FDA. It is banned by the European Union, Australia, and most of the UK. Because when azodicarbonamide breaks down during baking, one of its byproducts is semicarbazide, a compound that studies have found to be carcinogenic in animals. The EU position is that the benefit, a slightly more consistent texture in cheap bread, does not justify the residual risk. The American position is that the residual amounts are small enough to be acceptable. You are eating the difference between those two positions every time you have a fast food sandwich on a commercially baked bun. Subway removed it from their bread in 2014 after public pressure. Many other chains have not. Many packaged bread products still contain it. The label will list it by name if it's present. Food 12. Recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH. Recombinant bovine growth hormone is a synthetic hormone injected into dairy cows to increase milk production. It was approved by the FDA in 1993. The European Union has prohibited its use in dairy production since 1999, based on concerns about both animal welfare and the elevated levels of a hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, that appear in milk from treated cows. IGF-1 is not alien to the human body. You produce it naturally. The concern is about elevated levels. Research has associated higher IGF-1 levels with increased proliferation of certain cancer cell types. Breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers appear in the literature most frequently. The European Food Safety Authority reviewed this and concluded the precautionary position was appropriate. Milk from RBGH-treated cows is not labeled as such in the United States unless the producer voluntarily states it. Dairy products labeled RBGH-free or from cows not treated with growth hormones have opted out. If your dairy product doesn't say that, you don't know what you're getting. Food 11. Chlorine-washed chicken. This is not an additive, it's a process, and it became one of the most visible transatlantic food disputes of the last decade for a reason. In the United States, poultry processing has for decades used chlorine dioxide, or chlorinated water, as a final decontamination rinse on chicken carcasses. The logic is that a chemical wash at the end of the process kills pathogens. The European Union banned the import of chlorine-washed chicken, not because chlorine itself is necessarily the danger. The EU uses chlorine in water treatment too, but because their regulators concluded the wash was being used as a substitute for hygiene standards throughout the rest of the process. The EU position is that clean chicken should be the result of clean conditions all the way through. The American position is that the end rinse is sufficient. The practical result is that American chicken processing plants operate with different baseline hygiene standards than European ones, and the chlorine wash is the correction mechanism for those conditions. This isn't on any label. There's no chlorine-washed disclosure required in the United States. You are eating the policy gap. Food 10. Carrageenan. Carrageenan is derived from red seaweed and has been used as a thickener and stabilizer in food for decades. You'll find it in plant-based milks, infant formula, deli meats, chocolate milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, and dozens of other products. It gives things a smooth, uniform texture. The European Union's position on carrageenan shifted significantly in 2018 and has been progressively tightened since. In 2024, EU standards effectively prohibit carrageenan in infant formula, a high-sensitivity application, based on research suggesting it may promote intestinal inflammation and alter gut permeability. The concern is a distinction between food-grade carrageenan and a degraded form called polygenin, which is a known carcinogen. The debate in the literature is whether food-grade carrageenan degrades into polygenin during digestion. Several studies say yes, to a meaningful degree. The FDA says the food-grade form is safe. The EU says the precautionary position in sensitive applications is warranted. If you are buying infant formula or heavily processed dairy products in the United States, carrageenan may be in it. It will be listed by name in the ingredients. Food 9. Titanium dioxide. This is the one where what they're putting in your food and why will genuinely surprise you. Titanium dioxide, coded as E171 in the EU system, is used in food as a whitening agent. It makes things look whiter and brighter. It's in chewing gum. It's in candy coatings. It's in salad dressings, certain cheeses, icing, and powdered donuts. It makes the white look more white. That is its entire purpose in food. The European Food Safety Authority completed a full safety review in 2021 and concluded that titanium dioxide could no longer be considered safe for use in food. The concern is genotoxicity, the possibility that titanium dioxide nanoparticles can damage DNA. The EU fully banned it in food products in 2022, with enforcement tightening through 2024. The FDA has not acted on this. Titanium dioxide remains approved for use in food in the United States at concentrations up to 1% by weight. The WHO classified it as a possible human carcinogen in a separate context, as an inhalable substance in workplace environments, which adds to the picture without being the direct food use finding. You are eating titanium dioxide in products where the only function it serves is making the food look more visually appealing. We're halfway through this list, and everything you've heard so far is documented in publicly available regulatory filings. Not wellness blogs, not alternative health forums, official government food safety determinations. What's coming in the next 7 is sharper. The evidence is harder to dismiss, and the gap between what Europe decided and what's still in American pantries gets wider. Stay with me. Food 8. Propylparaben. Propylparaben is a preservative, part of the paraben family that you may have seen removed from personal care products over the last decade. Shampoos and lotions advertised as paraben-free became a whole marketing category because of the endocrine disruption concerns around parabens. What nobody told you is that propylparaben is also in food. It's used to extend the shelf life of packaged pastries, tortillas, muffins, and processed cheeses. The European Food Safety Authority reviewed it in 2023 and concluded that propylparaben cannot be considered safe in food because of its confirmed ability to disrupt estrogen signaling. It mimics estrogen in the body at levels relevant to dietary exposure. The FDA still lists propylparaben as generally recognized as safe. It can be used in food at concentrations up to 0.1%. It is in products that don't look like they'd need a preservative: packaged bread products, mass-market baked goods, and some fast food items. Check the ingredients list on your packaged tortillas and processed cheese. The label will list it as propylparaben or propylparaben. If it's there, it is doing something to your hormone signaling that Europe decided wasn't acceptable. Food 7. Partially hydrogenated oils, the ones that survived the ban. The FDA banned partially hydrogenated oils, the main dietary source of artificial trans fats, in 2018. That ban gets cited often as evidence that the American food safety system works. Here's what most people miss. The ban included a petition process. Manufacturers could petition the FDA for approval to continue using PHOs in specific applications where no alternative existed. Several did. The FDA approved a number of these petitions. As of 2024, artificial trans fats from partially hydrogenated oils are legally present in certain spray cooking oils, some packaged crackers, and a handful of processed food applications where the manufacturer successfully argued for an exemption. The EU's position on trans fats is stricter, a hard legal limit of 2 grams of industrial trans fat per 100 grams of fat in any food product, implemented fully in 2021. The American system created a ban with a petition escape hatch. Some products exploited that escape hatch. They don't have to flag it distinctly. If a product's nutrition label shows 0 grams of trans fat per serving, but the ingredients list includes partially hydrogenated anything, serving size manipulation is allowing a non-zero amount to be listed as 0. That's legal here. It isn't in the EU. Food 6. Red dye 3. Erythrocene. Red dye 3 has had a strange regulatory history in the United States. The FDA banned it from cosmetics and externally applied drugs in 1990 because the research showed it caused thyroid tumors in male rats at high doses. They banned it for cosmetics. They did not ban it from food. Red dye 3 remained in food for another 35 years. It's in maraschino cherries. It's in certain fruit cocktails. It's in some candies and baked goods. In January 2024, the FDA finally revoked its authorization for use in food and ingested drugs, citing the Delaney Clause, a provision in American law that prohibits the approval of food additives shown to cause cancer in animals or humans, regardless of dose. But the revocation came with a transition window. Manufacturers have until 2027 to reformulate or remove the dye. That means red dye 3 is still legally in food products you can buy today. If you're buying maraschino cherries or brightly colored candies right now, check the label. The tumor evidence was in front of regulators in 1990. They banned it for lipstick. They let it stay in your food for another 3.5 decades. Food 5. Yellow dye. The UK Food Standards Agency issued guidance requiring foods containing these dyes to carry a warning label. May have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. That warning exists in the UK because the research is strong enough that regulators decided parents deserve to know. In the United States, These dyes are in mac and cheese. They're in sports drinks. They're in chips, crackers, breakfast cereals, flavored snacks, and dozens of products marketed directly at children. There is no warning label. The FDA reviewed the same evidence that prompted the UK warning. A study funded by the UK Food Standards Agency itself, published in The Lancet in 2007, showing that a mixture of artificial colors and the preservative sodium benzoate produced increased hyperactivity in children who consumed them. The FDA's position in 2011 was that the evidence did not support a general causal relationship. That is a regulatory conclusion. It is not the same thing as the evidence being absent. You are feeding children food with a warning label in the UK and no warning label here. Food 4. BHA and BHT, butylated hydroxyanisole and butylated hydroxytoluene. BHA and BHT are antioxidant preservatives added to packaged foods to prevent fats from going rancid. They're in cereal, chips, chewing gum, instant mashed potatoes, packaged meat products, and an enormous range of processed foods. They extend shelf life significantly. The European Union has progressively tightened restrictions on both compounds. BHA is on the EU's list of substances of concern for potential endocrine-disrupting properties. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified BHA as possibly carcinogenic to humans. BHT has associated research showing thyroid disruption and potential carcinogenic effects at elevated exposures. Neither is outright banned across all EU food categories, but the EU's maximum permitted levels are lower than those allowed in the United States, and both are prohibited from several food categories in the EU where the FDA still permits them. The US National Toxicology Program listed BHA as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. Reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen is on a US government document. That document is public. The cereal aisle hasn't changed. Food 3. Sodium nitrite in processed meat. The research on sodium nitrite and processed meat has been building for over 2 decades. Sodium nitrite is added to bacon, hot dogs, deli meats, ham, and cured sausages. It prevents botulism, maintains the pink color, and extends shelf life. It also reacts with compounds naturally present in meat and with compounds produced in the human gut to form nitrosamines, many of which are classified as probable human carcinogens. In 2015, the World Health Organization classified processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen, the same category as tobacco and asbestos. Group 1 does not mean equally dangerous as tobacco. It means the evidence that it causes cancer in humans is sufficient and consistent. The specific cancer most strongly linked is colorectal cancer. The EU has not banned sodium nitrite outright, but in 2023, the European Parliament passed a resolution calling for a phase-out of nitrite and nitrate additives in processed meat products, and significantly restricting the amounts manufacturers are permitted to use. EU maximum levels for sodium nitrite in meat products are lower than American permitted levels, and the regulatory trajectory is toward elimination. In the United States, the conversation in the regulatory space has not moved toward phase-out. Sodium nitrite is still in the vast majority of commercially produced cured meats on American shelves. The warning is in the WHO classification. It is not on the package of bacon. Food 2. PFAS in food packaging, the invisible ingredient. This one is different from every other item on this list because it isn't an ingredient. You won't find it in the ingredients list. You won't find it anywhere on the label. Because it isn't added to the food, it migrates into the food from the packaging. PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are a class of synthetic chemicals used in grease-resistant food packaging, fast food wrappers, microwave popcorn bags, pizza boxes, paper plates, takeout containers. They're there to prevent grease from soaking through. They also leach into the food, particularly when exposed to heat. PFAS are sometimes called forever chemicals because they do not break down in the environment or in the human body. They accumulate. The health concerns linked to PFAS exposure include thyroid disease, immune system suppression, liver damage, certain cancers, and developmental effects in children. The EU has been systematically eliminating PFAS from food contact materials since 2020, with comprehensive restrictions taking broader effect through 2024. Denmark effectively banned them in food packaging years ago. In the United States, the FDA accepted voluntary phase-outs from some manufacturers, but did not mandate them. As of 2024, PFAS-containing food packaging is still being used by many American food service companies. If your fast food comes in a grease-resistant wrapper, or your microwave popcorn bag has a glossy interior coating, PFAS may be migrating into what you're eating. There is nothing on the packaging that tells you this. Food 1. Artificial food dyes. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, the full picture. In September 2023, California became the first U.S. state to ban 4 food dyes, red dye 3 among them, setting a 2027 removal deadline. But the federal picture is still unresolved, and the full scope of what the evidence shows about synthetic food dyes and what American regulators have chosen not to do about it is the clearest example of this entire list. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2. These are in thousands of American products. Breakfast cereals marketed to children, candy, fruit-flavored drinks, baked goods, snacks. They make things look brighter and more appealing. They serve no nutritional purpose. They have no function except appearance. The UK's response to the Lancet study, mandatory warning labels that have effectively caused manufacturers to reformulate their products for the UK market rather than carry the label, meant that many companies now make 2 versions of the same product. A UK version without the synthetic dyes, an American version with them. This is not a hypothetical situation. Kellogg's Fruit Loops in the UK is colored with fruit and vegetable extracts. In the US, it still uses red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 1. Same product, same company, different country, different formula. The evidence that prompted the UK warning label exists. The manufacturers clearly know how to make food without these dyes. They're already doing it elsewhere. The choice to keep using them in the American market is not a scientific conclusion. It is a business decision, and your child is eating the difference between those 2 things every morning. The warning was always there. It was on a package in another country. It just didn't make it onto yours. Grand unifying statement. 15 foods. None of them are mysteries. The research behind every restriction on this list is public. The regulatory decisions Europe made are published and documented. In almost every case, American regulators reviewed the same evidence and made a different choice. That choice is not random. The food industry spends approximately $1 billion per year on lobbying and regulatory influence in the United States. That money doesn't buy false science. It buys delays. It buys voluntary phase-outs with generous timelines. It buys petition processes with escape hatches. It buys the repeated conclusion that the evidence is not yet conclusive enough to act. You are not eating bad science. You are eating the outcome of a regulatory system that is structured to move slowly, that weighs industry disruption heavily in its calculus, and that has decided that the burden of proof for removing something already profitable is very high. Europe decided differently. Not perfectly. Their system has its own pressures and compromises. But on these 15 items, they looked at the same data and decided the precautionary standard was worth something. You can act on this right now. Read your ingredients lists. Look for the names I've given you. Buy the version without them when it exists. The version without them is often already on the shelf. The manufacturers are already making it for someone else. You just have to ask for it. The warning was always there. Now you know where to look. I want to know which one of these surprised you most. Leave it in the comments. Was it the titanium dioxide? The packaging chemicals you can't see on any label? The dye that's already been reformulated out of the UK version of the same product you buy here? Tell me which one you're checking for first. This community is full of people reading past the front of the label, and that conversation in the comments is worth having. If you want to keep getting this kind of information, the regulatory documents, the science, the specific names to look for, subscribe now. This channel goes where the label doesn't, and there is a lot more that doesn't make it onto the label.